Welcome to The Pure Perspective, the podcast where we explore the many pathways to recovery. I'm your host, Kyle Van Blerkum, and I'm thrilled to have you here with us today. At The Pure Perspective, we're on a mission to shine light onto the journey of healing, resilience, and hope. Each episode, we bring you powerful stories of individuals who have faced substance use and mental health challenges head-on, along with insights from trained professionals and family members offering unwavering support. Whether you're on your own path to recovery or seeking to understand the struggles and triumphs of others, you're in the right place. This podcast is a safe space for inspiration, connection, and growth. Get ready for candid conversations, heartfelt stories, and valuable insights right here on The Pure Perspective. Before we dive into today's incredible episode, I want to give a huge shout out to the amazing people over at Recovery Rockstars Group for their support. They've been gracious enough to allow us to share our upcoming episodes on their page. Your encouragement means the world to us. I also want to encourage everyone to check out the Recovery Rockstars Recovery Group on Facebook for some truly inspiring content. Their dedication to spreading hope aligns perfectly with our mission here at The Pure Perspective. And guess what? This collaboration is just the beginning. Stay tuned for more empowering stories, collaborations, and exciting content ahead on our podcast. Your support keeps us going and helps us shed light on the journeys of resilience and recovery. Thank you, Recovery Rockstars Group, and all of our listeners. Get ready for another amazing show. Hello and welcome back to The Pure Perspective. Today I'm incredibly excited to introduce our next guest, Julie Smith, the remarkable founder of Onyx House Sober Living. Julie's impact on the recovery landscape in western Wisconsin is nothing short of extraordinary. Her dedication and instrumental role in bridging the immense gap in access to sober living resources has transformed countless lives in the community. With a profound background in substance use disorder and a wealth of experience in the field, Julie is not just a trailblazer, but also an advocate for recovery. Her passion and commitment have sparked significant changes and provided a beacon of hope for individuals navigating their recovery journey. Join us as we delve into Julie's inspiring story, her journey in establishing Onyx House, and the monumental impact that she continues to make in advocating for recovery. It's an episode you won't want to miss. Welcome, Julie. So, Julie, you've been gracious enough to have me out at the new location here. And we're going to talk a little bit about Onyx Sober Living, your journey, how you guys have grown, and I'm really excited to hear a little bit about.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell the story. Yeah. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So let's just start with how we got into sober living. I'm an RN. I was working at a treatment facility in Minnesota for dual diagnosis men, and we were building a new house, and we wanted to keep our old house as a rental. And so one day I came home and I asked my husband if we could make it a sober house, explained what it was, explained why I wanted to do it. And he was like, no, thank you. I am not going to do that. And so I kind of let it go, and we were going to rent it to a family. And we own a lawn care and snow removal company, and he had taken a crew out shoveling from a sober house in Minnesota. Came home after that storm and said that was the best shovel crew I've ever had. They were grateful. They worked hard, and I said, that's the population I want to serve. And he said, all right, let's figure it out. So we started researching probably a year before we opened. We really did a lot of research in what our expectations were going to be, how they were going to be different because we were in Wisconsin and we're rural, how much accountability we could provide, and, just try to figure out what our structure was. And so I researched a lot of sober houses. I talked to a lot of owners in Minnesota and came up with our accountability and our program. And then we moved our first guy in December of 2018 from a treatment facility. So it was really exciting. Hard first guy. He was there all by himself. It took about 3 weeks to get a few guys in there, so we were every day checking on him, making sure he would make it to meetings. But that was the inception of Onyx. We started out with 2 houses. We had one for men, one for women, and ran the same program for both houses. And then we just kind of grew from there. When an opportunity came up for us to buy another house, we did, and filled that house. And so that's kind of the gist of how we got going.
How many houses do you have now?
So currently we have 6 homes for men across St. Croix County, Polk County, Dunn County, and then I have 2 units for families in St. Croix. We ended up closing our women's house about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago maybe. We were having a hard time keeping it full, keeping it stable. So we converted that into family housing and have served, we've served 2 families since the beginning of starting that, and then kind of filtered in different roommates here and there as as people moved in and out. But that's been a pretty good add-on to what we're doing too.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the framework that you guys are using and what the program looks like and how the support that the guys get or the families get in those different houses?
Yep. So what we started with was our basic, a lot of the sober houses in Minnesota run a basic program of 100% sobriety, getting to meetings, setting goals, minimum commitment of time to be there, self-pay program. So when you're coming in, you're making that commitment to pay to be there. And so we kind of structured it around the same thing. So our minimums, we have a 4-month minimum stay. You can stay as long as you want after that, as long as you're meeting expectations. But our expectations include going to at least 3 meetings a week, participating with the other people in the house, getting a job, working on putting your pieces back together. So if you come in without a driver's license, figuring out what you need to do to get your driver's license, things like that. And 100% sobriety. So if you're caught using, we ask you to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's a hard stance. It's a hard boundary to hold, but it protects all of the other people in our house. So I've had a lot of harm reduction people say that that's not appropriate. And I'm like, well, you know what, when I don't want them to take down the whole house, and that's how fast, when you are fighting addiction, that's how fast it happens.
Right.
If you let one person stay using, you will have 8 people using. So we take that very seriously to protect the integrity of our homes, give the men a place that they know is going to be safe when they get home, because out in the world can be really hard and really scary when you're early.
Right.
So that's just kind of how we've always rolled it out, and make sure that is our number one thing, is to make sure the homes are safe.
What does that look like for people? I mean, are they typically coming from a treatment facility or jail, or is there like a requirement for like a certain amount of time sober in order to come into the house?
So when we first started, we had a 28-day sobriety requirement. And so a lot of our people were coming from jail or from treatment. When COVID hit and everything kind of went down to half capacity for treatment, detox, jails were no longer holding people for the 28 days because of COVID. So we changed it to a clean UA to get in.
Got it.
So now we take people at like day 2 or 3 sober, maybe 3 or 4, maybe day 3 or 4 sober.
Right.
So we get a lot of people from detox, a lot of people from treatment, some people from jail. I mean, I get them from everywhere. I've gotten people from the Alano Club, from Grace Place, and pretty much if they're signing the agreement that they want to do something to change their lives, then we'll try to get them in.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And you actually just celebrated 5 years in business.
Yes.
Pretty recently. I got to be a part of that, and that was a pretty cool experience. Just seeing, how many lives you've impacted. And I know a lot of these people pretty personally, so
right.
It's pretty amazing to see the transformation, and that must feel pretty good that you were a part of that. And got to impact.
It does feel pretty good, and it's super overwhelming sometimes that I'm like, this is just something I'm passionate about. It's something I work on every single day. to make sure that what we are providing is awesome. And to see all of the people who showed up for that event, I think we had 150 people.
Yeah.
And not all of them directly through Onyx, but it really represented the ripple effect of what we're doing.
Right.
And just to bring it in, and we just bought this building a month ago, and we pulled off our first event.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks after we bought it, then it was a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
But to see it, it was amazing to see that kind of an effect. And I say that all the time, that when you are coming into recovery and you are doing your healing, it's not just you. You're affecting your family, you're affecting your community, and that just ripple effects all the way around. So it's pretty cool to be in this industry.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. What would you say is like the biggest obstacle that some of these guys or families are, face when they're coming into your programs?
I'd say the biggest obstacle, there's probably two. One is the funding piece. Yep. Most often they're coming in without jobs. Most often they have almost nothing to their names. So we bring people in. I tell them, don't let the finances scare you away. Just come in, we'll figure it out. So we put a lot of guys on payment plans. Sometimes we'll give them grace to get a job. Sometimes we're like, talk to your family and friends. Like, this is all,
Right.
Like, let's get this all together. Yeah. But the other biggest obstacle is in their own head. They don't think they can do it. They don't know what it's about. And then they get, 4 or 5 months in, and they're like, holy cow, I can do it.
Yeah.
So many people come in and they're like, I will never, ever be able to kick drugs, ever.
Right.
And they get 4 or 5 months in, and they're like, I maybe could do it. Maybe. And so we're just giving them that path. But those are their biggest obstacles, is the finances chase them away, and their head.
So in this area, I know Onyx kind of filled a pretty big gap as far as sober living goes. What do you see for the future for Onyx as far as, you talked a little bit about the family program. Mm-hmm. Do you guys see yourself expanding, or maybe talk a little bit about the use for this new building you have?
Yeah, do you want the big scary dream or like the realistic dream?
I want to hear the scary one, yeah.
The big scary dream, when we first started this, we wanted to have all levels of care.
Yeah.
Sober living, treatment, detox, after sober living, sober apartment, family, some things.
Oh, sure.
So a whole level of care, but also to be able to expand it out across all of the counties in this region, which in Region 5, so Region 5 is a probation boundary. So that's what our region is. It's 16 counties. There's hardly any sober living in this whole region. So I'm like, why don't we just, put 1 or 2 houses in every single county in the region?
Yeah.
Because I'm insane. But it fills the gap in care really solidly.
Yeah.
Safe, sober housing is the number 2 gap in care for people in early recovery in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So to just be able to come in and be like, all right, we'll figure part of that out for us, for this area. Next step, so if we're going to reel her back to what we're doing today, we just bought this building. We're going to make it into a recovery center, which will give us a safe space for people to come in, not only hang out, fellowship, build solid relationships, but we want it to be like a robust place of meetings and education. So a couple of the programs we're working on right now is a family program that we can have families who want to seek a different way of living and give them the accountability of Onyx without the housing piece. So maybe if they are justice involved and their probation agent is saying, hey, we need clean UAs, well, that's almost impossible if you're out there all by yourself. You need peer support. Right. It is very important to get connected with other people who are doing the same things that you want to do. Yeah. So that's what we want to kind of provide is here is a launching point to get you started on your new life, which is, I think, is going to be great.
Yeah.
We're talking about starting a recovery college, which will have life skills classes, maybe art classes, maybe nutrition that people can enroll in, and doing a recovery coach hub site So we'll have recovery coaches on site that could go out into the world and work with people who need help meeting their goals.
Pretty amazing. Can you talk a little bit about what a recovery coach is? I know I'm familiar. I'm going to actually do the training, but I know there is a difference between like peer support and a professional, setting and recovery coaches.
Yeah. So the recovery coach is more focused on substance use disorder without the mental health piece, even though they go hand in hand.
Right.
A recovery coach will meet with someone and work with them on a recovery plan and help them meet their goals. So if I wanted to get my driver's license back, I could meet with my recovery coach and say, can you help me figure out the way? Because navigating systems is hard. It's hard for the average person.
Especially someone in early recovery.
And people in early recovery are like, oh, I didn't get through on that one phone call. I'm not calling anybody ever again. So some of it is, here's a phone number. Like the recovery coach will not do the work for you.
Right.
I do that same thing with anybody I'm working with. I won't do the work for you.
Right.
But I'll give you a phone number and I'll check back in with you. And that's kind of the role of the recovery coach, is just to be that peer support. And then when you hit something hard, when you find out you have a warrant and you're scared and you call your recovery coach and they're like, oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah. I know you have to go do the things and we'll still be here when you get out. It's one of the hardest pieces.
It's funny. I actually talked to, him yesterday, and he told me a very similar situation that he was dealing with. So that's funny. So some added accountability, essentially. And I know at one point you had shared that you were trying to have a recovery coach in each of your homes. Is that still a goal, or?
I actually want to have a recovery coach in each of the counties that I'm in.
Got it. Okay.
I thought about having a recovery coach in the homes, but they already get pretty good support in the homes, peer to peer. So I kind of want to have one that's just sort of around, and it's really good for somebody who maybe is discharged early for relapse or whatever the discharge is, to have somebody that they can just they can just call on and say, hey, here's what's happening. Continued support. Yeah, a lot of the people who relapse, you get stuck. You get stuck in that relapse. It's really hard to get out. And so if you have somebody who's out there that's like, hey, I will help you. And if you were like 5 days in and somebody reaches out and says, I'll help you, that might stop it faster than if you have nobody reaching out and then you're 90 days in. Yeah.
I was actually at an institution pretty recently, and it's interesting because they had I think it was a recovery coach of some sort that followed up with me after I left. And they were, checking in, and it's nice just to, know that somebody's kind of checking in on you. And I know before we started recording, we had talked a little bit about, with the family programming, how you hope to maybe impact families that are involved with CPS. Can you talk a little bit about that? And
I can. So, Child Protective Services in our counties have a lot of families that are out of home placed. There's a lot of kids out of home placed. And because of the level that that's at, it's hard to manage. It is a hard job to manage, and it's hard to figure out how can you best support a family. CPS's requirements are usually like, here, we need you to be sober. So stop using, get clean UAs, figure it out, and there's no other support there. So when I was thinking about it, one of the families that I have helped went through CPS, and they said, here are the things that helped us. Being part of Onyx helped. Their workers were very involved in like, here, go to this, and kept them busy. Sure. And I don't think that is easy to do. Right. For a lot of agencies. So I would like to see our family program reach out to CPS and just say, hey, if they are struggling and they need other families who are also going through the things, then let's bring them all together and they can support each other. That peer-to-peer movement is working.
It's pretty amazing, yeah.
It's pretty amazing, yeah.
It's exciting times for peer support for sure. And who better to, be that person to say, like, look, this can work. I've been through it. I've done it. Like, I'm living proof of that. So
Right. So that's what we're hoping. And I haven't reached out to CPS yet, but that's probably my first point of contact when we have the family program kind of firmed up on how we're going to do it, what it's going to look like. I have a couple that's ready to roll on it that has been through all of the stuff too.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I say about the sober houses too. Like, come in where everybody's working the same program.
Yeah.
And they can help you figure it out.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. It's awesome. You were recently, I don't know what the word is, but you're on the county...
The board.
The board. You have a seat at the table now.
I do have a seat at the table.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I am on the St. Croix County Health and Human Services Board.
Yep.
So what that board does is they oversee behavioral health and like kind of the helping departments of St. Croix County. And so I was voted in to be a voting member on that board. And I think I started like in June or July. So right now it's a lot of like getting my legs under me, trying to figure out, where I'm going to be most valuable. But they do talk a lot about addiction and where the money goes for those things. There's some people that don't understand addiction at all who are part of that, and a lot of us who do. And so I think just having a seat at the table is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We'll just see. We'll see where it goes.
Been lucky enough to sit in on one of those meetings, and just even the language that's used for someone who has kind of been on the other side of all of that, to hear, justice involvement versus criminal or inmate or, whatever, like it's little things like that. Those are, system changes at kind of the basic level. So it's refreshing to hear that.
Yes.
So how long do you sit on, or how long is the term? I don't know if I'm using the right terminology for that, but
I don't know.
Okay. Till further notice, indefinitely.
Till they tell me to stop sitting in the seat. I'm not sure. Bob at the county, he was like, "Hey, I want you to be a part of this. Are you interested?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And he goes, "All right, start. Amazing. Come." Yeah. I'm like, "Okay." So like the last one, we did a harm reduction presentation at our last board meeting. And so that was a pretty good discussion after, because some people are like, if you do harm reduction measures, then you're just encouraging use.
Yeah.
And so to get people to understand the difference in that is, it's pretty powerful when you see that light bulb go on, that I'm like, you put your seatbelt on every day, that's harm reduction.
Yeah.
And there is somebody who told you have to do that.
Right. And the other school of thought is that you're enabling folks to continue to
and that you're enabling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I know what we're going to talk about next.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about harm reduction, and because you have kind of a unique outlook on that, so I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
My unique outlook on harm reduction. There are a lot of harm reduction people out there who are like, give them a chance, keep. If somebody, there are even sober houses that if somebody uses, we're going to vote, and that is considered a harm reduction measure. I don't believe that. I'm like, you have to have some level of wanting it if you're going to come into sober housing. I do think that sober housing is a level of harm reduction. So is Narcan.
Sure.
So is doTERRA bags to safely dispose of your medications. So are fentanyl test strips. But there's different levels in that. So when you're working with somebody on harm reduction, you have to kind of stage it.
Right.
Are you at the I need fentanyl test strips harm reduction level? Right. Or are you at the I want to stop using harm reduction level? Like, how can you help me? And there's all different levels. And so when I talk to people about harm reduction, I sometimes get like attacked on that. They're like, you don't believe in it? I'm like, no, I believe in it for sure.
Yeah.
We had a guy once that kind of attacked the sober houses that discharge people for use. And he goes, would you do that to a diabetic? I'm like, if I had a diabetic house, I would. Yeah. If he kept bringing in cake in the house. Yeah. I'm like, that's not even the same concepts, but there I think there's a space for harm reduction in all different areas, but it is a lot about trying to figure out
where you're at on
it. How do you accept it? How do you portray it to people so that they can understand at any level? So if you are sitting on the St. Croix County Board,
right,
how do you portray it so that the board members understand it? But then also, how do you portray it to somebody who is struggling with addiction? And like, hey, this isn't just to keep you using. This is like, here, let's do it safely. Right. And when you're ready for help, we're here.
Right. That's good. And when I think of harm reduction, I also think of like medically assisted treatment. What are your thoughts with medications, and then how does that fit into the sober living?
Yep. So we do accept medication assisted treatment. We just got our first guy that came in on methadone, which is the first time that we've had that. Other people were on a Vivitrol shot or Suboxone. And what I feel about that, if you are going to be on a medication-assisted treatment, there should be some kind of requirements of like, what is your plan to get off of that? And a lot of that is like therapy and outpatient, and are you going to do step work, and are you going to attend meetings, and how are you going to build your peers around you so that at some point you can get off of that medication. Right. And that's kind of how I've always felt like that, even when I worked in treatment.
It's to bridge you out of...
It's to bridge you out. Yeah. You should not have to be on it for the rest of your life. I think that there's a ton of medications that are like that. In treatment, we put almost everybody went on anti-anxiety, antidepressant, something, because you need that. You need it because your brain's not producing the chemicals it needs because of all the use, right? But at some point, you can get your brain to produce the chemicals that it needs so that you're not struggling with, crippling depression every minute, and then you can bridge off. Same thing with medication-assisted treatment.
Yeah, I know. I heard a pretty good lecture not too long ago from a doctor that kind of had the same outlook, and it was really interesting. I think, and actually, he had some of his patients up there sharing that, they were almost more nervous about the taper than they were the actual, than the actual effect of tapering the medication. It was the anxiety or the buildup of reducing the dose. So it's just kind of interesting.
Oh, right.
People were more nervous about reducing the dose. So
than the actual reduction.
Than the actual once it happened. So some of them said, well, I would just go ahead and taper it myself because I knew that they were going to cut me down in 30 days. So I just wanted to be in control of it. So it was just kind of interesting to get.
That is pretty interesting. I don't let my people do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
I'm just looking to see. I had some other questions, but I think we might have answered a lot of them. What kind of challenges have you faced when you move into a community or start a sober living? And I mean, can you talk a little bit about
or open
that?
a recovery center across the street? Our biggest challenge. So when we very first opened our first house in town, we were very open about what we were doing. We went to the city and told them, and we talked to the neighbors, and it was hard. The city they didn't try to shut us down. They were just like, you have guidelines that we are going to impose on you. And we're like, yeah, you can't do that. We're going to run it how we want to run it. And then like the police got involved, and the neighbors reported activity at the sober house, and took pictures of license plates and sent them to the drug task force. And that guy showed up and was like, what are you doing here? I'm like, it's a sober house. And he goes, there's a lot of affiliation here. I'm like, that would make sense because they're all brand new in recovery. So some of it was that, just like, what are you bringing into our community? I'm like, it's already here.
Right.
So settle down. After that experience, we decided we're just going to open without talking to the neighbors first or the city, because we can run it under a single family home. People in early recovery are protected under Americans with Disability Act and have the right to communal living under fair housing. So sober housing is communal living. You can have as many people in your family as you want to have. So we decided after the enrichment experience that we were just going to open houses, and when something came up, we'd go talk to the neighbors. And that has been better.
Yeah.
So usually we'll be open a couple of months, and then a neighbor will call and be like, what are you doing at that house? And then we'll explain everything. I usually meet with them, give them our expectations. Here's my business card. You have any concern at all, call me. And that has helped a lot.
Yeah.
So that's probably our biggest challenge is like the neighbors. And you know what? I understand it. And it's a lot. It's very fear-based.
It's scary.
It's scary.
There's scary people with tattoos next door.
There are. So we kind of make the guys in the house, we're like, do good things for the neighbors.
Yeah.
Our very first house, we're like, you better shovel the neighbors' walks on both sides. And they're like, do we have to? And I was like, yeah, you want to live here? Yeah, you have to. Clean up their leaves, like just do things that are kind. So that's kind of shifted some of that stigma in the area.
And I feel like there's been a change, right? I mean, since you guys have started doing this, you go into a community, I mean, and now you're part of the HHS board, like, obviously people are seeing, they're seeing it. They're seeing it play out, so that's pretty amazing.
Can we talk about my award?
Yes. What award?
You don't know about the award?
No.
We were awarded the Recovery Advocacy Award for the state of Wisconsin from Voices for Recovery.
Oh, you know what? I did see that.
Yeah, in September. Yeah.
Wow.
So that award, my daughter, Izzy, nominated Onyx for it online. And then it was a voting thing. So it was very much like, here, push it out to whoever. So I put it out to all of my referent-based people. Shameless plug, please vote for Onyx things to all the counselors and the house managers. I was like, you better have every single person vote. And then we won, and we were up against like organizations that were in Madison and Milwaukee and Green Bay. We won.
That's awesome.
So we road tripped down to Madison to accept the award. There was probably 30 of us that all went down for the day. They had the recovery rally down there at the Capitol. So yeah, we all went down, we hung out at the rally, talked to a few of the people that I know only over Zoom. So that was pretty cool to see them in person.
Yeah.
And then we accepted the award. So it was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
To be recognized like that. And statewide. Yeah. Oh.
That's awesome. So can you talk a little bit, well, we were talking a little bit earlier about your own step work, right? You just recently, or maybe it wasn't recently, worked the steps, and you had some kind of interesting things to say about that.
Yes. So I went to a Came to Believe retreat in May. I think it was May of 21. It was the first in-person after COVID. I kind of require the men in the house to go to meetings, work a recovery program. Well, in our area, it is AANA, Work the Steps. So I was like, I'm going to go and just do some research on that. And I did. That retreat is a 3-day retreat. It'll take you through steps 1 through 9 in a weekend. And then after that, you live in 10, 11, and 12, right? So I went, I'm like, all right, I'm going to work the steps. Even though I don't identify as a person with addiction or alcohol issues, after I worked the steps, I found out that I was probably addicted to men, codependent. But I got to a 4th step, and I was really scared to do it, as everybody is. And then I just decided, like, all right, just dive in. I worked it around, at that retreat, I worked my steps around trauma, and that I have no control over my past trauma. And so to go through all of the 4th step worksheet where you're like, here are all of the amazing things you could be, and here are all of the character defect things you could be. And I circled so many character defects. And I was really, really pissed about it. Because I was like, I think I'm good. I'm raising kids, and I've started this business, and I think everything's great, and I'm a nurse.
Yeah.
So I circled all these things, and I just realized that anybody can work the steps. Yeah. Anybody can get value out of that. And Kyle, you hit it that we, people in early recovery have this opportunity that other people don't have. It's an expectation that you're going to go in and work a recovery program and do the things to work on yourself.
Right.
And a majority of people in the world don't get that opportunity.
They don't have that freedom.
Yeah. They don't have that freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was there. I did my 4th step. We were supposed to do a 5th step over lunch, and one of the top people was like, "Did you do your 5th step yet?" And I swore at him, and then I was like, "I'll do it, fine." So I did. I sat, and I was very honest about all of the things, which is what you need to do. Like, secrets keep you sick. We say it all the time. So I was very honest. I was fortunate that I had somebody there that I didn't know, like wasn't moving in my circle. So I could just do a 5th step with her, which was great because a lot of the people I knew. And I was like, there's not a chance I'm telling any of you what's in my head. Right. But I got past that. I now just seek to make sure that I am, you clean your side of the street, right? And anybody can get value out of working the steps. Mm-hmm. Anybody. So I work with a lot of wives, a lot of moms, and I'm like, listen, you need to set boundaries, but have you ever thought about doing this? They're like, no, I'm not an addict. I'm like, do the healing. It's all about doing the healing. Yeah. So it was pretty cool coming out on the other side of that. Also to be at that retreat and to be kind of an outsider and not, or thinking I was an outsider, that was all in my head. Yeah. It was not actually true. Yeah. And to get accepted into that group of people as one of them was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a cool story. Yeah, I believe that too. I think everybody carries something, right?
Yes.
So the 12 steps gives you an opportunity to kind of feel better. I don't know. So much healing for me. I can definitely attest to that. Can you take the last few minutes and just maybe describe a success story that you've seen in the program? I know you've probably seen a lot of them, but
I've seen a lot of successes and a lot of not successes. I would say one of the biggest ones that we have is a family that, they were in CPS. Their kids got taken away. He went to jail. She called me and said, I need to get into the women's house. I said, I'm sorry, I closed the women's house. And she was like, I don't know what to do. They raided my house. This is horrible. And I'm like, there's nothing you can do. I was literally like, take a deep breath. Nothing you can do. Sit down. Contact CPS. Find out what they need. Call me back tomorrow. Yeah. We'll see if we can figure it out. So after her boyfriend got released from jail, he came to Onyx, and she attached herself to Onyx. From that moment on, she was doing service work. They were both clean. Her sober date is a few days after his. Mm-hmm. Like, he went to jail, and then she was still in the house that made her sick. Yeah. So she attached herself to Onyx, and she hung out there probably more than we should have allowed her to as a woman in a male house. But she took men to probation. She took them to the store. She made sure they got to meetings. She started coming to our Onyx meetings. They got their kids back. They are still coming to our Onyx meetings, still super connected in recovery. Love what we're doing. I love what they're doing. Their kids are amazing. Sorry. Okay. Probably my biggest success is they are 2 years clean, over 2 years clean. Yeah. All of their kids are happy and healthy. And they're just doing it. They're doing life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I know exactly who you're talking about. And I'm actually going to have them on the show. They're going to give their story, so that'll be good stuff. Well, Julie, do you have any final thoughts for people that are maybe, thinking about getting sober?
If you are thinking about getting sober, make the phone call. Yeah. My website is letsrecovertogether.org. Phone number is 715-245-1275. Please make the phone call. You deserve to have a better life. You are worthy of something better. Your family is waiting for you.
Yeah.
So it's time. Let's just do it. Let's recover together.
That's amazing. Well, I just want to thank you so much for having me. This is amazing stuff. I'm so excited for our listeners to hear it. And you just,
Yeah, thank you for having me. When you reached out, I was like, yes, it's so great.
Yeah.
You're doing such good things. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on this inspiring journey of strength and recovery. If you found this episode meaningful, please consider subscribing to The Pure Perspective to stay updated on our upcoming episodes. Your support means the world to us, and by sharing these stories, you're helping to spread hope and resilience to those who may need it most. Remember, you're not alone on your journey, and together we can make a difference. Subscribe now, and let's keep moving forward one story at a time.